Hello, thanks for watching. I'm going just to tell you some brief handy tips of working with clay so you can get the most out of our clay at home kits during lockdown, or just gives you a warning of what you can do when you come to the studio when we're open and fully functioning. So I've got a lump of clay in my hand here, and it's best not to work it too hard. By that I mean don't play with it, don't squidge it, don't poke it, push it. You dry it out. What you need to do is when you start working with clay beforehand, you need to have a clear idea of what you would like to make, how you're going to make it, before you actually start messing around with it, kind of thing. Because the more you handle it, the more you work with it, the more it dries out and it can crack. And if you get cracks in it, when it dries out, those cracks can get bigger or become fault lines when it fires in the kiln, and it can be an area where it breaks. The other thing of kind of not to do is if you're starting it and you don't like it, squidging it up, because that forces lots of air in and creates lots of air bubbles inside your clay. These air bubbles are a challenge to get rid of. You often can't see them, and when it goes in the kiln, that little pocket of air the change in temperatures when it fires can just make it blow up, and it literally blows up like a bomb going off. And those pieces scatter across the kiln and knock other pieces out in the kiln at the same time. So it's to be avoided at all costs if you can. So while we're working with it, if you are wanting to say make an animal, lots of children want to do that, or you're making add-ons to put onto pieces, we find it difficult to fire something solid like this because the internal temperature becomes too different to the external temperature and causes it to break. So if you were making this into, say, an animal, so we'll just, for the purpose of the instructions, just like that is your body, and you break off a smaller piece, roll it in your hand, so roll it like just in the ball. Some people find that really difficult. I think it's just shapes of hands and just a knack. Mine's coming out like a flat saucer today, so I wanted just to work on it. Just pat it in your hand and just get it into more ball-like shape. And there we go. So if you wanted to make it into an animal with sort of like a pointy nose, you can pinch it in and create things like that. I'll take it closer to the camera. You can mould it a bit, give it a beak. Might be a bird, this one, no idea. So it's just naturally, conveniently got a little crease in that side. So I'm thinking it might be a beak. And then I'm just going to smooth with my finger down there, like that. Just smooth it off. So you can, it's a bit grumpy at the moment, the smiling face. There we go. There's a little feature there. Okay, so we've got a head and a body. Now, if you put those two together, they're going to be a bit too solid. So what we need to do is a special tool here with a loop on the end that you put into the piece and twirl it round. See the camera and pull it out and create a hole. Just clean the clay out of there and then put it back in, twirl it round. Okay. So you do that. So you'll see this hole developing. So do it gently so you don't alter the shape of your piece and knock it out of shape. Now, if you haven't got one of these tools at home, you could use like a vegetable peeler, apple corer, or if you've got just like a small stick or the wooden stick that comes in your kit, you can scoop out slowly with one of those. Okay, so I'll just pat that over so we don't rock his neck too much. You can see it's hollowed out. Just tap it. Just tap it. He's got a flat base of his neck there, and then we want to repeat the same to the body. So this being a bit bigger, the angle on the camera's not too bad. This is all a bit of an experiment as well because I'm not used to doing it to the camera, but I just want to give you some handy tips so you can get on with it at home for some entertainment. In lockdown, while we're all sat wondering what's going on. There we go. So just take the insides. You can maybe squidge those bits up later and make them into hair and things like that. So I'm just going to tap that as well. Another thing to notice when you're working with clay, it doesn't smooth out when it goes in the kiln. So unlike putting some biscuit mix into the oven and it all spreads out a bit, this just dries hard, really, really hard. So I'm just smoothing off there with a sponge. You can use your fingers just with a little bit of water. There we go. Now, ideally, you want to put a hole straight through this piece with your brush. Just use the handle, poke it through, and just give it a twirl and smooth it over. So we've got a hole all the way through. And then you take your paintbrush into your slip pot. Slip is like nice runny clay. You get a pot of this to use in our kits. So you just treat it like glue. So you're going to just sit that, put the glue on there, and I'm just going to score some lines around the hole there, and then just sit that on top of here. And just give it a little wiggle, press down. The slip will ooze out a little bit, which is fine. And then using your wooden stick, just scoop. You see that? You scoop in the neck into the body, or the head into the body, and just do all around, just little gentle actions like that. And smooth it off. Just stick to get the worst off there. And then you can use a dampened sponge to rub around. Just clean it. As I say, it's not going to smooth off in the kiln, so if you want it nice and smooth, leave it nice and smooth before you finish with it. Any lumps and bumps, if you don't get rid of them, they will be there after it's dried and it's fired. There we go. So, this, by the way, is just an imaginary little friend. There we go. So if we wanted ears on him, I can take a little bit of this and it's sure squidged it together really firmly so we don't want air in this. Don't want his ears blown off. Roll it into a ball, and then you can use just a normal dinner knife at hand to do this if you don't have any sculpting tools, and chop the ball in half, and then roll each ball into a little ball, and each bit into a ball, like that. And then you're going to have two the same size, because it's really difficult to pinch two bits of clay off your lump of clay and expect it to be the same size. So I'm just going to squish these balls with my finger and just pinch them in a bit like that, and bend them in a bit like that. He's going to have pointy ears, and I'm going to flatten the end, and I'll repeat that one. So I'm squeezing it in between my fingers, look around, and just gently stroking it between my fingers to create a point, and then tapping that edge to flatten it off. Now I'm going to attach them. So this time I'm going to score the lines on the end of there. I'll put the slip on here. Oops. And I'm just going to put them on upside down. So I'm just going to sit his ears on like that. So I have no idea what he's going to be, but I'm just showing you this as techniques. So, right, so that's not quite enough. So he's glued on, but it could easily break off. So what we need to do is just work gently with the lollipop stick and just scoop some of the clay of his ears into his head, a bit like spreading butter on a bit of bread. Just that, all the way around, so we know that it's really firmly attached. Notice I'll stop talking every now and again because it's difficult to do this and talk at the same time because it's how you use your brain, which is why it's all very therapeutic, because you using a bit of your brain on the right side that just works in patterns and colours, shapes, doesn't do words. So once you're modelling with the clay, or sculpting or making bowls or whatever you fancy making, you'll find you start drifting off when you stop speaking. Which is why our adults night in our workshops are always very quiet. As long as people are making their piece, you really get into what they're doing. Okay, so if you can see his ears weren't really attached on there. So he's sitting there. There he is. So if I wanted little eyes on him, if I want to stick his eyes again, I'd get a bit of clay, roll it roughly, half it in half, roll it again, roll it again, and then you can have some sticky there. So just check to see if they're going to be, might be too big. Pinch it off. Let's check that they're going to use eyeballs. There we go. So I'm going to put a little bit of stick in his eye socket there. And I'm just going to press it down, not knit a bit. Just mold it into the eye. And then use it around. If you have a couple of brushes with you, it's quite handy. Or you can just clean your slip brush off in the water bowl and just clean around there like that. There we go. There you go. So if you wanted arms, you do the same thing. You're going to make some sausages. I'll make one sausage. And roll it. So I made a ball and then roll it in my hand. And then roll it out. Bigger size, and then you can decide how long you want his arms. Two, measure them same size. You can bottom one end out, making that little button, make it the hand. It's just drying with this, so I'm just going to rub some water on it, just to get rid of the cracks there. Smooth it off. Now I'm just going to do some scoring lines on the inside of his arm. And so slip. I don't know quite what this picture is going to be like. Smooth it on there. And let's go on the back of that arm there. Slip in there. And just turn him around so I'm not able to see, but just so I can get him as even as I can. And just smooth it in. Blend his arm into his body. Around the back there. That doesn't get too much metal lump stuck on. I'll do the same on this one. Work it in. Both just taking your time just to smooth it in. The best result. And if you wanted to, obviously paint toes on and fingernails, but you can just put some score lines in there. There we go. So that's just randomly creating a little creature. And you can put your feet on if you wanted to, some patterns on in his fur, add fur. And obviously you can add a lot more detail to him when you paint him up. Okay, so just take your time, smooth it as much as possible. If you see if there's any crazy bits there, just smooth them off with your finger, a little bit with a little bit of water. Just enjoy it. But a little bit of planning beforehand is great. And so remember to score it before you put the slip on, put it together, and then just smooth it off. And if you're putting two bits together, that making an animal, just make sure you hollow them out and make sure you've got your airway hole all the way through them. After you've worked with it, just make sure you can still get the stick straight through, because sometimes when you're putting it together, they'll close that hole up, and we don't want his head to blow off when he goes in the kill, really. So enjoy, get in touch, you know where I am if you need to ask anything while you're working with the clay, and enjoy. We'll see you soon.